Punjabi Hari Jaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya. Gopi Chandra Vallabha Girivara Sari Gopi Chandra Vallabha Gopi Chandra Vallabha Girivara Sari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Chandra Vallabha Girivara Sari 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 Yashoda Nandana Vrajadhana Nanda Yashoda Nandana Vrajadhana Nanda Yashoda Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Chandra Vallabha Girivara Sari Gopi Chandra Gopi Chandra Vallabha Girivara Sari Gopi Chandra Vallabha Yashoda Nandana Vrajadhana Nanda Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Vrajadhana Nanda Yashoda Nandana Yamunatira Vanacharya Yamunatira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Adi Guru Vishnu Vishnu Pada Hari Vrajaka Stotra Satashi Shima Divine Pai Chana Ravindra Sanskrit Papa Iskon Bibi Divan Jacharya Save the whole Moksha Papa Jai Nitu Vishnu Vishnu Par Paramahamsa Hari Vrajaka Stotra Satashi Shima Divine Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ananta Koti Vaishnavindiki Nama Charya Shaharidas Thakur Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakulam Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Braj Bhumi Sivindhamanam Ki Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Pushtam Jatra Dhamidam Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Bhakti Samaveta Bhakti Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Oh, gracious somebody. Oh, person, oh, person, oh, person, oh, person, oh, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Verse 21. Yes. Imam Lokam Amum Shaiva Imam Lokam Amum Shaiva Imam Lokam Amum Shaiva Ramayan Sutaram Yadun Ramayan Sutaram Yadun Ramayan Sutaram Yadun Imam Lokam Amum Shaiva Ramayan Sutaram Yadun Reme Chanadaya Data Reme Chanadaya Data Reme Chanadaya Data Chana Sri Chana Sohida Chana Sri Chana Sohida Chana Sri Chana Sohida Reme Chanadaya Data Chana Sri Chana Sohida Imam Lokam Mamum Shaiva Ramayam Sutaram Yadun Reme Chana Dayatata Chana Sri Chana Sohida Imam Lokam Mamum Shaiva Ramayam Sutaram Yadun Reme Chana Dayatata Chana Sri Chana Sohida Imam Lokam Imam Shaiva Sutaram Yadun Reme Shana Dayatata Shana Sri Shana Sodrida Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva Imam Lokam Imam Chaiva Imam, this lokam, earth, and the other worlds, cha, also, eva, certainly, ramayan, pleasing, sutaram, specifically, yadun, the yadus, reme, enjoyed, chanadaya, by night, data, given by, shana, pleasure, stri, with women, chana, conjugal love, sohida, friendship. Translation: the Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yellow Dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women, responsively pleased. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Lord enjoyed in this world with his pure devotees. Although he is the personality of Godhead and is transcendental to all material attachment, he nevertheless exhibited much attachment for his pure devotees on the earth, as well as for the demigods who engage in his service in the heavenly planets as powerful, delegated directors in the management of all material activities. He displayed special attachment for his family members, the Yadus, as well as for his 16,000 wives, who had the opportunity to meet him in the leisure hours of night. All these attachments of the Lord are manifestations of his internal potency, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation. In the Skanda Purana Prabhashkanda, in the topics between Lord Shiva and Gauri, there is the confirmation of his internal potential manifestations. There is mention of the Lord's meeting with 16,000 cowherd damsels, although he is the Hangsa, transcendental, super soul, and maintainer of all living entities. The 16,000 cowherd damsels are a display of 16 varieties of internal potencies. This will be more elaborately explained in the 10th canto. It is said there that Lord Krishna is just like the moon, and the internal potential damsels are like the stars around the moon. So this is the continuing conversation between Vidura and Uddhava. And Uddhava is recounting his experience with Krishna, or the pastimes of Krishna that he personally witnessed or took part in. And this conversation goes on, I think, till about the end of the 4th chapter, or midway through the 4th chapter. And there we see that Uddhava becomes overwhelmed by separation for Lord Krishna, and then he explains to Vidura that he can't talk anymore, and he encourages him to go and speak to Maitreya Rishi. And then Maitreya Rishi continues with the dialogue that took place between Uddhava and Krishna, because Maitreya Rishi was nearby and he witnessed that dialogue. And here we see that Uddhava is discussing Krishna's pastimes outside of Vrindavan, in particular the pastimes he was performing in Dwarka. And basically from verse 19 through to verse 22, we see that Uddhava is talking about two things. The Lord's acting in knowledge and also his renunciation. And there's an interesting verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because we see here, it's like Lord Chaitanya, in this section here, Lord Krishna is teaching by his practical example. If you look back at verse 19, it mentions here, where is it? Yeah. Simultaneously, the personality of God had enjoyed in the city of Dwarka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic customs of society. He was situated in detachment and knowledge, as enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy. So we see there's a similar verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yogam Shiksakam Ekam Purusha Purana Sri Krishna Chaitanyam Sharila Kripamburi Yastam Maham Prabhatye. How Lord Chaitanya, he came to teach knowledge and renunciation. So Krishna is doing the same thing. He's by his activities, he's demonstrating knowledge. He's following the Vedic culture. The way he interacts with his wives, the way he manages the kingdom, the way it's interesting because it explains in the subsequent verses here how Lord Krishna, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's subordinating himself to Yudhisthira Maharaj. Because Yudhisthira Maharaj, he was the emperor of the world. So technically he was in a superior position. You know, the Kauravas were superior to the Yadus. Krishna appeared as one of the Yadus. Yet he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to demonstrate the importance of following Vedic culture, we see how he subordinated himself to Yudhisthira Maharaj. It's interesting that also during the Battle of Kurukshetra, or during the dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita, how at one point Arjuna recalls how he was referring, hey Yadava, hey Sakha. And the Acharyas comment on that this is Arjuna sort of, by calling him Yadava, he's saying, you know, that I'm superior to you because I'm a Kaurava, you know, because they're the ruling class. But Arjuna's realizing actually that was a mistake, because this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everyone is inferior to him. But we see how Krishna, in order to establish the importance of Vedic philosophy and the Vedic culture, he followed the culture himself, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every day he would worship Brahmanas, he would give in charity to Brahmanas, he would care for the cows, he carried out all the duties of a Kshatriya king according to the codes that are given in the Vedic culture. So this way he's teaching the importance of knowledge. And there's an interesting statement there in the 19th chapter purport. where Prabhupada's explaining, although Sri Krishna is the supreme emperor of the entire creation, while he was on the earth, he never violated the principles of Vedic injunctions because they are the guide for human society. So by his example, he's teaching how to live. And we see also in the Bhagavad Gita, he explains to Arjuna that because he's trying to convince Arjuna to follow his dharma as a Kshatriya. And he said that, he's saying even for himself, if he did not follow the dharma, then all the world would be cast into ruination. And he quotes that verse, that whatever acts a great man does, the common man follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So Krishna's making the point there that it's important for all of us to follow Vedic culture. According to our capacity, because the Vedic culture has a single purpose. The purpose of the Vedic culture is to serve the Supreme Personality of God. And Prabhupada, he comments further in his purport here. Regulated human life according to the Vedic principles are based on a system of knowledge called Sankhya philosophy, is the real way of enjoyment of the necessities of life. Because we understand, okay, the necessities of life, the eating, sleeping, mating, defending, but all these things, we acquire these things by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in material life, we think we acquire all these things by my own prowess. And Krishna outlines this in the Bhagavad Gita, the divine and demonic nature. I think that's chapter 14 or 15, where he's describing the nature of the demons, where they're saying Ishwaraham Aham Bhogi Siddhaham Balavam Sukhi, that that Ishwara, that I'm the controller. Ishwaraham, I am the controller. Ishwaraham Aham Bhogi, and I'm the enjoyer. Siddhaham, I'm perfect. Balavan, strong. Sukhi, I'm happy. This is the nature of the demonic person. They think that everything I have is come about by my own endeavor. And I'm going to achieve so much more in the future by my plans. I'll kill this one and I'll conquer and I'll be happy. But the devotee actually understands that everything I have is come about by the mercy of the Supreme Person of Godhead. And then Prabhupada further goes on to explain here. Without such knowledge, detachment, and custom. So knowledge, detachment, custom. So we cultivate knowledge. We cultivate knowledge by studying the scriptures. The scriptures tell us who I am, who the Supreme Personality of God is, and what the material nature is, and what the function of material nature is. Lord Chaitanya, he concludes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that there's only 3 topics discussed in all the Vedic literature: Sambandha, Avideya, Prayojana. This is all it talks about, is who am I? What is my relationship to Krishna? Where am I right now in this material world? What's my conditioned life about? And Krishna, the Supreme Person of God, I am his eternal servant, and I can come to know him. I can achieve the goal of life, this love of Godhead, by practicing the process of devotional service. So, Sambandha, Avideya, Prayojana. And so here we say, without such knowledge, detachment, and custom, the so-called human civilization is no more than an animal society of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. And we see that Lord Krishna, he's by his acts, he's demonstrating, even though he's interacting with his 16,108 wives, still he's detached. Even though he's acting, it mentions in the 10th canto how he acts like a henpecked husband. But as Prabhupada's pointing out here, the Lord enjoyed in this world with his pure devotees. And Krishna explains that the pure devotees are under the influence of the internal energy, not the external energy. And so he's not interacting with the external energy. He's not attached to the external energy. He's interacting with the internal energy. And we see in this way how Krishna is very, loving in these exchanges with his devotees, and how he's really acting in a way to, especially we see in the pastimes of Vrindavan, how Krishna acts in a way to deepen the affection that devotees feel for him. You know, there's so many wonderful pastimes he performs in Vrindavan, especially his childhood pastimes. Right now we're singing this Damodarastaka prayer every day. And there's Balam Pasha, what's that? Balam, I can't remember the line now, but there's one line in that song where it describes how the childhood pastimes of Krishna are particularly sweet, and how this really, you know, the residents of Vrindavan, they were drowned in pools of ecstasy just by witnessing these beautiful childhood pastimes of Krishna. And this is the nature of Krishna's pastimes, is they're so sweet, especially his childhood pastimes, because he's not acting as God. Even though he is God, he acts in a way that's very sweet and very attractive. And the residents of Vrindavan are just more and more attracted to him every single day by witnessing his pastimes. The way he plays with the calves, the way he plays with the cows, the way he plays with his friends, the way he steals butter, you know, and you know, breaks the butter pots and wakes the babies and urinates on the floor and, you know, feeds the butter to the monkeys. These things just act to inspire or to, there's like an udipana, a stimulus to increase the love of the devotees for Krishna. And when we cultivate this knowledge of Krishna, we cultivate this knowledge of his nature. Murli was talking about this last night. When we cultivate the knowledge of Krishna and cultivate the knowledge of his nature, it brings about detachment. But not only does it bring about detachment, it brings about attachment to Krishna. And the more we become attached to Krishna, automatically we become detached from material nature. So this is the wonderful process of devotional service, and this is what Lord Chaitanya descended to teach, and it's also what Krishna himself is teaching by his activities. He's showing us the importance of knowledge, and he's showing us how to be detached from material nature, because we see he's not at all attached to material nature. There's so many wonderful examples of great Vaishnavas demonstrated of this detachment from matter. Because if we don't cultivate detachment from matter, we'll just remain in this material world, suffering the burning threefold miseries and taking birth after birth because of attachment to matter. But by cultivating knowledge of Krishna, by cultivating knowledge of the nature of the self, the nature of material nature, and the nature of the process of devotional service, then we will develop detachment from all things in this material world. And ultimately we'll come to the point of becoming attached to Krishna, like fully attached to Krishna. And this is one of the points. And it's interesting because in the next verse it mentions how only the devotees can understand the nature of these pastimes, because for ordinary people, they just seem like mundane pastimes, and this is particularly evident. You'll see in India, for instance, where they have these Bhagavad Saptaha programs, and they just seem to think that Lord Krishna's pastimes are just mundane exchanges between young boys and young girls, and it's just sex life. But someone who understands the nature of Krishna's pastimes and the nature of Krishna himself and his devotees understand that these are the most elevated exchanges between Krishna and his pure unalloyed devotees. I'll finish there because I've got to go and participate in an online class. Any questions at all on that? No?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Mitra.
I wanted to ask, I want to thank you for explaining on the deeper level the aspect of compassion. But as it seems as when you speak and you say that you can detach, but in his detachment, he's also continuing to be loving, caring for his time. And so in our understanding as aspiring Vaishnavas, sometimes it gets mixed up what detachment is.
Yeah.
You know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, or not keeping those components, or understanding or focusing on those components. That is bhakti, care, love, compassion, Lord Chaitanya's mission. How can we further do that in our association with each other?
By knowledge. By knowledge. Because through knowledge we understand that all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. And as we see they're part and parcel of Krishna, then this should increase our understanding of the need for compassion, our understanding of the need to extend mercy to other living entities. And you see in Prabhupada's acts or in Lord Chaitanya's acts or the acts of any great devotee, how they interacted with the fallen conditioned souls, the conditioning living entity. I mean, we see how Lord Chaitanya even gave his mercy to a dog. Shivananda Sen's dog, he was giving mercy to him. And we see also that Lord Chaitanya, when he was going through the Jharkhand forest, he was giving his mercy to all these other living entities. So when we have knowledge, we understand that the living entities are all part and parcel of Krishna, but due to their attachment to material nature, they're suffering in this material world. And the actual position of the living entity is to be an eternal loving servant of Krishna. And only through connecting to the process of bhakti will they reawaken that knowledge. So, especially in the beginning stages, we see that younger devotees will consider that all this stuff is Maya. All these attachments to other living entities, these interactions with other conditional living entities, it's all Maya. You give it all up. But it's practically impersonalism. How can you give up relationships? We have to have, as part of the living entity, is to interact, and it's the nature of the living entity, sorry, to interact and have relationships with other living entities. You can't exist without that. So to think that, I'm going to enjoy life by giving up all relationships is just uninformed. So the best way to remedy that situation is through studying the scriptures, because we see all throughout the scriptures, Krishna's having loving relationships with his devotees. The devotees are having loving relationships with each other. Very deeply loving relationships. You see in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, the way the different devotees would interact with each other is very loving. They're not, to have a relationship with you is Maya. You never see that. Krishna's, you see, like it talks also here in the earlier verses, how when Krishna, I can't remember the king's name, Banasura or something, when he killed Banasura, and Banasura had captured 16,000 princesses. And when the princesses saw Krishna, they just became instantly infatuated with him. And then so he married them all, and he gave them all 10 children each, and palaces for them, and he interacted with them in such an intimate way. And he had loving exchanges with his wives, in such a way that they felt secure in their relationship with Krishna. But it's just like if we're in a loving, in a relationship with another person, and they don't feel secure in that relationship, they don't feel like that we have their best interest at heart, that we're loyal to them, that we're nurturing them as living entities, then how will they be secure? How will they move forward in their Krishna consciousness? And so it's important that we learn how to develop loving relationships. Well, one time, I was talking with a devotee about this recently. There was one devotee who was coming from the perspective you're talking about, and Prabhupada was giving him some marital advice. And he said, sometimes you need to kiss your wife. And she needs to feel affection. Otherwise, she won't feel secure in the relationship. But Prabhupada is kind of interesting. As a sannyasi, was advising this devotee to kiss his wife, because that's part of an affectionate exchange. What's the point of getting married just to gratify your senses? No, you're meant to cultivate a relationship with that person, And so you can both move forward in Krishna consciousness. That's the point of marriage, is to collectively move forward in Krishna consciousness, not just like, okay, I use their body to gratify my senses because I can't control my material desires. It's not about that. You know, it's about, working cooperatively together to become God conscious.
Thank you so much. And, for Philosophical House, keeping as many people as possible inspired in Krishna consciousness and having them want to come back and want to stay.
Having what?
Want to come back, want to stay, want to continue to serve and grow,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unless you have compassion upon the living entities, you can't preach. You have to see how people are suffering and understand that the only thing that's going to rectify that situation is Krishna consciousness. And the point of knowledge is to know, who the living entity is, who Krishna is, what the material nature is, what's our relationship with all of this. And detachment means detachment from all that is material, detachment from everything that's not related to Krishna. Every living entity is related to Krishna. All matter is related to Krishna. But the point is we're not attached to enjoying these things, to trying to take this for my own. We're attached to trying to engage these things in Krishna's service. That is real detachment. By seeing the connection of everything to Krishna, that is how you cultivate detachment. And I was giving this example the other day about the Sambandha triangle, and the real essence of, because you can come before the deities and do all your whole devotional type of things, but if we're still attached to enjoying the material nature, it's kind of hollow, this so-called devotion. So we really need to understand our position in this material world, what the material nature is about. It's Krishna's energy, it's meant to serve him. If we understand that, then all these things we take, just like, we have a computer, right? We can use this to study the scriptures, we can use this to preach Krishna consciousness, we can use this to develop courses in Krishna consciousness, etc., or we can use it to enjoy our senses. It's the same object. It just depends on how you utilize it. Same with the body. Same object. How do you use it? Prabhupada would say Krishna consciousness means taking the I out of the middle of everything and putting Krishna in the middle of everything. So that's what we have to do, is just put Krishna in the center of our lives. And that's detachment, because we're not trying to enjoy the body, we're trying to utilize the body in Krishna's service. That's what detachment's about, not artificially trying to renounce things, which aren't really ours anyhow. Okay, I better finish this. So Prabhupada ki, Sarvata Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi,
Hari Hari
Bol.
Thank you very much.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. Look,
Yeah.
good microphone stand, eh?
Yeah.
Classic.
Hare Krishna to the devotees online. Hare Krishna. Just a reminder for those that are coming to today's deity course, it begins at 10 o'clock sharp here at the temple. They'll be given by His Grace Narasimha Kavaca and Morley Manohar. So look forward to seeing you there. Hare Krishna.